Part 2. After I got to my room, I showered and then slept for a few hours. My plan going out to Williston was to check out the tent city and maybe find some people who'd be willing to talk. From there, maybe get a ride out to the oil fields and see the drilling and the fracking firsthand. Except that by the time I arrived, Walmart had made everyone leave. Apparently, the corporate headquarters in Arkansas didn't want Waltonvilles catching on to the media imagination. Exploiting employees to the point of underpaying them so they still need public assistance to live is one thing, but having totally dependent communities pop up in their parking lots made it a little too obvious that Walmarts control and manipulate the economies of every town they build in. But there was still the bar. The motel I stayed in, like every other motel in town, had a bar with some casino-style gaming. And I couldn't help but think of the westerns I used to watch with my old man. Those boom towns full of lonely men with too much time, too much money. And then there was that flood of younger workers willing to do the job cheaper, like some of the ones who'd gotten off the same train as me. They were the corporation's guarantee against organized labor being too organized. Lots of anger bubbling underneath everything. An entire catch just waiting to be mined. I went down to the bar. They had one bottle of Kentucky Branch water, but it was one I favored, so I ordered an overpriced shot and a bottle of Coors Light. The place was dark, like a closet. The only real light that shone in was from the motel hallway, and then there was a television behind the bar, and the light hanging over the roulette wheel in the corner. The woman running the roulette wheel looked almost too young to be in a bar. She was all trussed up and overpainted, but no one was playing roulette. She looked bored. The bartender was older and probably welcomed the dim light behind the bar, though she still dressed pushing forward what she'd been told were her best attributes. I was the only one at the bar, and she figured out quickly that I probably couldn't afford a long night of boomtown priced bourbon. And there was one other person in the bar, a man sitting alone at one of the few tables scattered in the small space. He was half in shadow, sipping on brown liquor and a rocks glass. He could have been chiseled straight from the ground or formed out of the fracking tar. I tried engaging him in some conversation, but he wouldn't have it. Then his phone rang. His voice was as gravelly as the rest of him. Between the noise of the TV, the noise from the hallway, the music on the jukebox, I couldn't hear much of what he was talking about. Yes, he was going to be sending home money as soon as he got paid. No, there wasn't much of a chance he'd get away anytime soon. I wondered how long since he'd been home. Not with all these kids coming up here, I heard him say. They work cheap, push good men out, and then they can't even hack the work. And then the rest of us have to work harder just to make it up. There were some other choice words he used, soft being among them. I couldn't help but wonder if he was talking louder for my benefit. I never got around to telling him I wasn't there looking for work, but a story. I ordered another round. Don't listen to him, the bartender said. He's been here a long time. He's cranky. So I told her why I was in Williston. After all, bartenders have good stories. They hear everything. And even if she didn't want to tell me a story I could include, she could point me in the right direction. You mean like that guy on TV, Larry the Cable Guy? Are you with his crew? She sounded almost interested. Almost. I blinked. She noticed right away I wasn't with the crew. Her almost interest immediately evaporated. Then she told me that Larry the Cable Guy had been there for about a week, recording around town and out at one of the drilling camps. And there it was. I knew the story he was going to tell. I didn't watch him and I didn't watch his show, but I knew about the show. It was one of those reality TV shows where he goes around and shows off American spunk and hard work. And I didn't have to watch the episode when it came out to know He wasn't going to talk about the recently erased Waltonville, or the painted girl on the roulette wheel, or the bartender who seemed to enjoy taking the wind out of my sails, or even the field worker on his phone, railing against youth and laziness. Thanks so much for listening to episode 20, part 2 of Record of a Well-Worn Pair of Traveling Boots. Please be sure to show some love by subscribing to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or whatever podcatcher you use. Check out past episodes and look for episode 21 in a couple weeks. If you really enjoy this podcast, please consider becoming a patron on our Patreon page, www.patreon.com/wellwornboots. That's patreon.com/wellwornboots, all pushed together. You get additional access, including special patron-only podcast episodes and other goodies starting at $1 a month. So, for the cost of a cup of coffee in 1995, you can support stories and art you enjoy. That's patreon.com/wellwornboots. Thanks again for listening, and may the road always rise to meet your feet.